where you said we've just gone live and the little green light is on your thing, so be warned. And turn over to 30 by my computer. Oh, welcome everyone. Welcome to Tony, especially, special guests and others. We've got a few new faces today, so we want to go through and do a bit of a welcome. I'm Donald McIntyre. I represent Regional Council and Chair of this committee.
Abby Matthews, I'm the Director of Environment Quality here at TRC.
Brian Roach, I am a South Taranaki District Councillor and appointed to this committee.
Kaito, Kolari Tokuinua, I'm Laree. I run the Education Unit for the Regional Council and run environment skills for Taranaki.
Tony Wilson, I'm the Chief Executive for Agriculture Foundation.
Hello, I'm Grayson Cotter. I'm the Regional Waste Officer for the 3 District Councils.
Kia ora, I'm Jen O'Connell, currently Resource Recovery and Sustainability Lead at New Plymouth District Council.
Jacob Waterman, Contracts Manager for Resource Recovery in New Plymouth District Council.
Victoria Mackay, I am the Manager of the Environmental Assurance here at TRC, working for IDEA.
Kia ora, I'm Min Mackay, the Deputy Mayor for Stratford District Council and on this committee.
I'm the Governance Administrator at TRC.
Thank you for that, everyone. Somebody want to lead Karakia?
Happy to lead Karakia. Feel free to join us. Wakataka te hau, ki te uru. Wakataka te hau, ki te tonga. Kia mā, kina, ki uta. Kia mā, tara, ki te hau. Kia hi, aki ana, te atakura. Kia tia, e huka, e hauhu. Tuturu, o witi wakamoa, kia tina. Huie, tai.
Thank you. Any apologies from the elected representative?
Well, I haven't had any.
Oh, from New Plymouth. Murray Murray or Max haven't confirmed or anything. Okay, so nothing to do there. Minutes of the 14th of November. Minutes of the 14th of November 2024 are there. Are there any errors or omissions? If not, I'll thank somebody to move their adoption, please.
I'll move that, Chair.
Thank you, Lynn. Brian for second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right. First item on the agenda. Back, please. Presentation from Ag Recovery. Do you want to go into that, Abby, or shall I go?
You go.
Okay. Yeah. So this came. Well, this started because I got I think it was your report, Tony, through Ag Recovery. I'm a dairy farmer, and signed up to Ag Recovery. So I thought, what a great opportunity to have your input. You're a product stewardship scheme, which I think is working successfully. You'll tell us whether you think it's working successfully. So if you'd like to lead us through your presentation, and then we can go from there.
Cool, thank you. And I'd like to appreciate the opportunity for the Chair and the councillors for this presentation. Okay, so in 2019, the government made some changes to introduce, under the Waste Minimisation Act, introduce product stewardship schemes as the vehicle for recycling plastic. They highlighted some priority products along there, which farm plastics and household pest and weeds and animal health were one, or 3 of them, of which Ag Recovery is responsible for those areas. The regulated product stewardship scheme was consulted on publicly, and they came up with 26 guidelines, which when you put your application in to be accredited, you need to show that you can meet those 26 guidelines, or you can have the Minister for the Environment can choose not to accept some of those guidelines if that's a request. Last year, or year before actually, Ag Recovery put their application in, and we were successful at becoming the accredited product stewardship scheme for farm plastics, of which household pest and weeds and animal health are part of that one. So we're it. We are responsible for the farm plastics. So why is this happening, or what is ag recovery seeing to drive us to really push this forward? And it's the things that we're seeing is sustainability is becoming so much more serious conversation overseas with our trading partners. Overseas consumers are wanting proof that they are consuming a product that is not damaging the environment. Overseas trade negotiations are introducing rules around sustainability. So we're very closely linked with Europe, and we're seeing all this stuff coming through. Supermarkets are replacing requirements for New Zealand farmers to be sustainable, particularly in the red meat industry. So we provide a lot of evidence to Sainsbury's and Tesco's around farmers using our services, and therefore allows those farmers to be able to sell their products into those supermarkets or into restaurant chains as well. Our farmers and growers are wanting to be sustainable. So I'll talk shortly about some of what we're seeing on a weekly basis in our office. And a little bit different to sustainability, and that is that the farmers actually have a problem. They have plastic on the farm. So some of it isn't about sustainability for them. It's actually they want that plastic to come off the farm in the most suitable way. They don't want to bury it. They don't want to burn it. And we understand through research, I've recently done my master's in sustainability, and some of the research I did is that farmers can get a 9.7% higher return on their product by having a sustainability tick. So it's something I'm going to push quite hard, I think. So when we put our application up, there was 4 plastics that were first cab off the rank, and that was your agrochemicals in their containers, which Ag Recovery is currently doing. It was the bale wrap and silage wrap, which Plasback is currently doing. Then we have the small seed, feed and fertiliser bags, which are basically under the 25 kg size bags. That scheme in Ag Recovery's taken on board, and we've had that up and running for about 2.5 years now, and that's going really well. And then the large grain and fertiliser bags, which is your Ravensdown and Bolt and Allens 1 tonne, 1.5 tonne woven PP bags. So they're the first 4 that we're tackling, 3 of which are up and running now. I have approached Ravensdown and Balance to start the product stewardship scheme for the large bags sooner rather than later, and I've had a very good engagement from them. So I do plan on putting a advisory group together to get that up and running in April. So to start building it, to get it running up and early. And likewise with the bale wrap and the silage wrap, working with Plasback, who's a partner with us now, to see if we can get the silage and balage wrap run up more as a product stewardship scheme going forward sooner rather than later as well. So
is it not product stewardship bale wrap?
Both Ag Recovery and Plasback's product stewardship schemes were voluntary, and they have ceased under the new regulations. So they finished up last year. So technically, those schemes aren't no longer accredited. But because Ag Recovery has been accredited under the new scheme, we fold under that one. So we're trying to get the silage and balage wrap to come under ours.
Right.
But they are just continuing as business as usual for them, which is a user pays collection, which doesn't meet the guidelines that are set out by the ministry. Then on year 2 and 3, we've got irrigation pipe, vineyard netting, aquacultural plastics. I won't go through the whole list there, but that's stuff that we're getting inundated with phone calls every week from farmers and growers wanting solutions for it. So one of the parts for us is we find our customers. We've got 23,000 people in our database, and they're wanting solutions for it. So we can take that evidence back to the brands and the manufacturers of these products and say, hey, there's a keenness for a scheme to be set up here. They're willing to pay their proportion of it to get the scheme up and running. So pretty quickly, we've got the first 4 coming up, but I'm going to have to be running to get the year 2 and 3 ones going as well, because some of them are very, very complex to recycle. So that's the 15 products, 14 products that we're looking to get. There'll be other ones that are coming up as well, and they will be introduced as a voluntary scheme, not as an accredited scheme, just to get the wheels rolling on those ones. And when I talk about that, what it means is when we get the evidence, we get the brands and stuff signed up, we will work with government to go through the regulation process to get that regulated. So big challenge for us is we are the accredited product stewardship scheme for farm plastics. It's like being dressed up with no ball to go to, because we don't have regulations. So we don't actually have the funding coming in to pay for all this type of thing yet. So we're working with the ministers to put that on their priority list to get the regulations to go to consultation. There's a level of keenness from the governments, other than one particular party, to progress it. So we're pushing forward with that one. We'll see how that goes. But no money, we can't do things, right? So that's why you sort of see me trying to bring up it as a voluntary scheme and get things started early. We have recently sent a letter to the ministers that have been signed by Federated Farmers, Hort New Zealand, and about 10 other associations encouraging the ministers to progress with consultation. So we're not seeing anyone opposing us out in the industry. Everyone's wanting it to happen. We're a not-for-profit charitable trust, so we're not here to make money. We're here to collect the plastic, and we've got a lot of farmers and growers wanting to do the right thing. So hopefully we will get it goes through to consultation shortly, and then we'll go through the process of the government years to get it through to regulation. Once it goes through regulation, this is the exciting part, and this is where I really need help from the councils. I've got to build a collection system right across New Zealand, and what we are proposing, I've been over to Europe a few years ago, and I've seen what they've done over there, and they're up to 90-95% recycle rates over there for agricultural products. So we've got a lot of catching up to do. And I've looked at the French model, which is a company by the name of Adi Valor, and they have collection systems that they hold in different regions, and they hold them 4 weeks to 6 weeks every year, sometimes a wash up in a couple of months later. So we're looking at copying that. An example would be if you have a local horse race course in the region, and it has a great big car park, that horse track only gets used once or twice a year. But we would ask if we could rent out their car park as an example, and then we would heavily advertise to the farmers and the growers in the region to bring your plastics to that site. And we'll be open for the 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 2 or 3 days a week, and bring all your plastics there. We'll have bins to put them in. We'll have forklifts and grapplers and stuff to manage the plastic. We'll have the expertise there to make sure it's all put into the right area. We'll also have our IT system there, so the farmer will get the recognition of the returning of the product through their activity report. And from there, we will be looking to move that product unbaled, untreated up to, in the North Island, up to Matamata, where we'll have a wash plant, a baler, and the ability to get that prepared for recycling. The wash plant is a new version of what we've come up with, and it's incredibly important because it shows our farmers and our growers we're treating it like a resource. It is really important for us. We're not going to be exporting dirty plastic offshore. We'll be exporting clean plastic offshore for recycling. And yes, it will be sent offshore because there is not the capability to do soft plastic recycling in New Zealand to the volume that we need. We are competing with food grade soft plastics, and the recyclers would much rather go for the food grade plastic because it's a good quality and can be reused in so many different variations. So we do export it offshore. What we have offshore is only A grade recyclers that we use. We're not chasing the dollar. We're not chasing to make money there. We're chasing the volume or the yield to be recycled from those sites. So those sites will be audited, and there'll be specific ones that we send it to. And that also allows us with the other part of the product stewardship scheme, which is innovation in the plastic, for what it gets turned into. That's really important to us because we know farmers and growers don't want it to be turned into rubbish bags or anything like that. They'd rather it come back as a cheap tractor part or something like that they can use. So that's the model there. Where it becomes tricky for us is there's always a difference in seasons across the country. So we would be looking for the councils to provide some type of out-of-season collection, pretty much just for silage wrap, but it would be somewhere where we can interact with what resources are already existing, that we can have some plastic dropped off there that we can collect and move it through. We can't afford to have full-time FTEs right across the country just in the chance that the farmer turns up to drop that plastic off. And we are working with the merchants who have been really good at providing drop-off sites and everything for their plastics, and they'll look at seasonal drop-off sites such as rubberware and everything. But for things like silage wrap, hail netting, or windbreakers and stuff, that can come at any stage throughout the year. So we just need an area that we can have that dropped off to and monitored there. So that's a challenge for us. Change behaviour. So it takes a while to change the behaviour of the farmers and the growers. We still get them grumpy. but we are building a customer-focused service, because to really succeed, it has to be built for the farmer and the grower to interact with us. We have a very high rate, 87% return rate for customers, which is really good. We want to improve on that, but if we do it right for the customer, they'll keep coming back again. Funding, no money coming from the brands to pay for this. I can't do anything, right? There's only 5 of us in the office, and we're not for profit, so we try and keep things really cheap. We don't have a slush fund. We don't have access to all that type of stuff. So we really need the money coming in. And one of the challenges that we have is we get funded in retrospect of what enters the market. So there would always be a delay of 3 months before we receive any funding, before we can actually do anything. So we're working with the Ministry for the Environment to sort of see how would we position that, how would we make that work so people don't feel like they're just paying for nothing. And then the lack of data, we really don't know how much plastic's out there. We got Price Waterhouse to come out there and do some estimates there. We know Plasbac's collecting 8,400 tonnes of silage wrap, which we think there's about 12,000, 15,000 tonne that enters the market. But don't forget that 8,400 tonne has contamination in it, which is anywhere from 40 to 50%. So, and that's a massive amount of plastic that's coming through. Now, if we're going to triple that or quadruple that, that's a lot of trucks going around, a lot of baling, a lot of cleaning and stuff. So we need to be mindful of that. And then the volume by capacity. So we know the areas that we're wanting to focus on are Taranaki, Waikato, Canterbury and Southland, which are high users of plastic, particularly with the dairy industry. So we need to have really good systems here for collecting it and moving that through for processing. Lack of expertise. So recycling plastic's not really a modern thing in New Zealand to a great degree. So I've been pushing my team to do training. We've connected with EPRO, which is a European Plastic Recycling Association, and they give us a lot of information. Unfortunately, they're 3 a.m. calls in the morning that we have with them. It's quite tough, but they are 12 years ahead of us in conversation and 10 years ahead of us in infrastructure investment. So we've got a lot of catching up to do, but we can piggyback off all their knowledge and stuff, and that's
we don't have to do anything new. We can just follow them.
That's yeah, because a lot of our product goes to Europe, and a lot of the changes to plastic packaging will come out from Europe as well. So we just need to be prepared for what's coming out of there. And the one that really annoys me is greenwashing. I'll tell you right now, there is no simple solution. There is no miracle solution for plastic. You hear about chemical washing or chemical recycling stuff. Europe are on the fence on that. They think there will be a place for chemical recycling, but it will be to complement mechanical recycling. We just do mechanical recycling here. It's good. It works well. What we need to do is get better quality plastic to that mechanical recycling for processing. So, if people are saying, oh, we can take all this plastic and we can put it together and we can make a fence post, right? Well, that's merging polymers together. I can't recycle plastic that's had polymers merged together. We have to keep plastic separate, and then we can keep recycling them over and over and over again. There is no miracle solution out there. It's good old-fashioned mechanical recycling. So that's my presentation. I'm open for questions.
Couple of things that I had. You've got here rubberware, which Brian and I were very keen for you to go into, because that's a challenge for most dairy farmers, where you've got to replace your liners in particular every year and things like that. So, and it's hard to get rid of. It's a pain.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we are working with Scalar to develop a trial where we can collect the rubberware, and we'll be looking at this stage Canterbury and Waikato at the first instance for the first year to run the trial. And then if that's successful, then we'll roll it out right across the country. The rubber will be sent to the cement kiln in Northland.
Same as the tyres.
Yep. So we've had it tested there. We're a little bit more trickier because we have to shred it down to about 10 mils. It's pneumatically put into the kiln. So there's some real challenges in finding a shredder that can handle it, the liners and stuff, because they tend to stretch and everything, unlike tyres. So a few challenges there, but Scalar have been really good, as has the merchants for being collection sites. So what we need to work through, while we're just doing it in the Waikato and Christchurch at the moment, Canterbury, sorry, is we just need to know how we we collect them and how we transport them. Is there any risk with the liners ripping, or is the smell really bad, or how are we going to handle it? And then we'll quite easily roll it out across the country.
Thinking about that is what they make them out of, etc. Is that how important is that in the process? You know, different compositions. They've got a formula that works for the product they use it for, but if it had a different formula, would it have a wider use factor for you, or be easier to recycle, or something like that?
Just for rubber, or any type?
Well, rubber mainly, but other things too. Yeah.
The rubber that goes out into the dairy industry is incredibly good rubber.
Yeah.
We've got a solution for it, but it's not the only solution we're going to look for. We're going to look for other opportunities as well. So I'm working with another person. I can't say what it is, but he has an idea of what he can use it for. So we are looking at innovation, which is one of the 26 guidelines. But at the moment, we've found a solution for it. It's better than burning it on farms. So we'll keep going with that one, but we're always looking at improvements. I think the other types of plastics is more of a challenge for us. So if you look at the bright coloured, the small bags with under 25 kgs, and you go into one of the merchants and you see it's all bright and shiny, it's terrible for recycling. It's probably got a BOPP liner over it. It's probably got different laminates on it. What we want is just plain, boring, woven PP bags, and then we can recycle it.
With printing on them, does that just...
Printing's a contaminant, glue's a contaminant, labels are contaminant, stitching's a contaminant. So if we can just keep it as simple as possible, as plain as possible, then we get the recyclers get what they call a better yield out of the recycling process, and they're all about yield. So the more contamination in it, the less that they get when they process it through. We have had a massive uptake of brands joining the small bag scheme and changing their bags to be either an LDPE or a woven PP. So that's been really, really well received. Where our challenges have been, funny enough, is that the brands say, oh, that sector, equine, for example, aren't interested in recycling. So they don't think it's worthwhile joining. So how do we change the behaviour of those sectors to actually want that recycling to happen? Keep the bags plain. And feedback, our biggest challenge will be the marketing departments, because they like the bright colours and all that type of stuff. So.
And the other one I've got highlighted was irrigation pipe. You know, you end up with a lot of alkathene sitting around. So that's recyclable?
Yes. Yep. The challenge with irrigation pipe is the bits where the water come out have silicon, and that silicon's a contaminant, and it's hard to put through a float cycle so that it comes out. But we have been working with a number of recyclers in Malaysia that have got a float system that does work. So you saw it on the list there to be recycled, so we can recycle it. Yeah. Great. We've been focusing on is where the greatest volume is. So we'll be focusing in like Marlborough, all of those areas there where they have high volume, and we can ship, because we need to ship container loads each time we get it. We don't want to stockpile it. So we focus on high areas, but once we get regulated and we've got the money coming in, it has to be national. So we'll roll it out nationally.
You guys, any question? Yep, carry on.
Hey, Chairman. Thanks for the presentation. Do you actually recycle the bale netting?
No.
As I was told, yes.
Yeah. It can be recycled. It just has an incredibly high contamination rate, about 70%.
Yeah.
I saw a site over in France where they're just working on a new system of how to do it. And once they've got that up and running, that's an example of how we can copy that and get it ready for recycling. But I do know there's some innovation that's happening out into the marketplace that will potentially make the netting the same material as the bale wrap and can be incorporated within the bale wrap for recycling.
Just some of the new balers don't even use the netting, they actually use wrap.
Right. Oh, yeah, they got a plastic sheet.
Big, same wrap as what goes around the bales.
Yeah.
Anyhow, make use of the council transfer stations. So we have a number of transfer stations in South Taranaki.
Yes.
If you got little stuff that, not for the big stuff, but if you got little stuff that wants to be dropped off, right around the clock, do make use of the council transfer stations. And then the rubber pipe on the farm, some of our rubber pipe on the farm's got woven steel in it. Okay, I understand you won't want to put that through your chipper.
But if it's going into the furnace, it'll go into the furnace because they actually need.
But you got to chip it. You got to chip it to get to
Yeah,
the
but they're doing that
furnace.
with tyres. So
We would have, what we do is we get a sample of the product, whether it's rubber or plastic, and we'll test it with our recyclers, and they'll come back saying yes or no. And once we get the yes, then we start building a scheme around it. So every bit of plastic or rubber that we have has been tested with our recycler.
Okay.
We haven't done the steel and it probably can go with the tyres, but we'd need to test that.
yeah,
And some of the big suction lines we've got are steel woven.
Yeah.
So they don't collapse.
Yeah. Well,
That's right.
they can get the metal out of tyres. So I'm assuming they could get the metal out of that, but they'd have to test it. Yeah.
I know the stuff that's going to the cement works. Iron is actually a good thing because the tyres fit their profile. They need a bit of steel in the cement making process, and so it fits that criteria quite nicely.
Oh, yeah.
And the rubber burns a lot hotter than oil, which they would otherwise be using.
That's what-
Man, did you?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. Thank you. What you mentioned there in Europe, the ag recycle is around 95%. What's our conversion here?
I really haven't worked it out, but it'd be well under 40%. So we for agrochemicals, we're probably around 60 to 70%. But for the other plastics out there, it'd be pretty low, yeah, if anything's happening.
And so we send the plastic that you are able to recycle that gets sent offshore. What percentage goes to get sent offshore actually goes and is actually recycled?
Well, a very high level, because we have strict criteria for collection, for acceptance. So if we're talking about an HDPE, 98% would be recycled in New Zealand, and the balance would be shipped offshore. And that was just to test some recycling systems to see if that would work. For the silage wrap, 100% of it's sent offshore, and it's it would be over 99% that would be shipped offshore. There'd be less than 1% that would be sent to landfill, but that's because we won't accept anything off the farm that's filthy or can't be exported. We have to meet the Basel Agreement, so we have our requirements on acceptance.
Okay.
I don't know how much is left on the farm. I don't have any measures on that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all good. And where does your funding come from?
So our funding comes from the brands or the manufacturers that put the plastic out into the marketplace. They would be required to pay a fee to us, and our fee for our agrochemical containers and the chemicals is 12 cents per container per litre, and that funds us to go and collect all that plastic. So if we're looking at the woven PP bags, I think it's about $5.36 per 1 tonne woven PP bag that the manufacturers like Balance or Ravensdown would pay us to collect that.
And would that be a barrier for those brands that don't want to go into that scheme because they have to increase their price?
Yes, it is, and that's under a voluntary scheme, and that's why we want the regulated scheme to come on board, because it gets rid of the free riders. So, for example, AgroCovery's been around for 18 years, and we haven't had Ecolab belong to us other than recently with the small containers, but the drums, they don't want to be part of our drum scheme. So they've chosen a different avenue, and it's their choice to do that under a voluntary scheme.
Okay. So there's no responsibility at the moment on brands to, I guess, engage in recycling or sustainability. Correct.
Yeah, I mean, they may get peer pressure from their customers and stuff, but there's no requirement for them to do it. If they sign up with AgroCovery, they can look to exit if they want to, because it's a voluntary scheme. Whereas if it's regulated, if you're putting plastic out there, you need to make sure that it can be recycled by AgroCovery.
This makes sense.
Because I know we buy oil in 20-litre containers, and I know my own garage now. They would take them back and they give them back to the supplier. I'm not sure what they do. They don't put them through your scheme, I suppose, do they?
No, we can't recycle oil containers. So I think it's ROSE, which is the product stewardship scheme for oil, and they've got avenues that they can. They're not so much worried about the containers; it's more about refining the oil that's in those containers. But we get a lot of phone calls for oil containers. A lot of farmers have them and they want solutions, but we just can't take them. We put our stuff through a shredder, and if you put it through a shredder with all that oil, our shredders would be a mess within a day.
Yeah, I suppose. So product stewardship, is that working for you, or because what covers what are you covered by product stewardship at the moment?
Yes, we're accredited. We're accredited scheme manager of the Green Farms Product Stewardship Scheme.
Right, and it's got all those ones on the left or the right,
On the left, the four.
or just those four.
Well, they're the ones that are going to be regulated. So that's what we have
Yep.
been accredited for. We just need that regulation to kick it off. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you're looking to move to those ones on the right hand column as well.
Yes. When we became accredited in our application, we indicated in the application those would be the other 9 that we would be doing in year 2 and 3.
Yeah. That's, like I say, I don't know, you other waste people, how does that rate in relation to domestic waste type collections? Well, getting stewardship things going, and getting the plastic, or getting the waste moving to where it should be recycled.
I think we probably face quite similar issues in terms of contamination obviously affects yield.
Yeah.
With, recycling we have here, it's quite voluntary in terms of you don't have to recycle anything that you buy. You can choose to put it in whatever condition you like in the bin, and as council we don't have that kind of, we can't monitor everything that has to come through the MRF. So contamination is something we talk about quite a lot in our reporting, that it's an ongoing issue because while we do have levers we can pull if people are continuing to contaminate, it's not something that we can monitor probably quite as closely where it's rejected every single time. So yeah, similar issues, but product stewardship does sort of move that responsibility off the consumer a little bit. So tires, there was an update recently that's obviously working incredibly well because it takes the financial burden off the consumer to dispose of it. So ideally they dispose of it correctly, rather than just paying at the transfer station. So yeah, seeing more product stewardship come through is very beneficial. And plastics is the next one. I think that was meant to be coming through for household plastics. It's just quite delayed.
Yeah.
I think the product stewardship scheme structure and rules around it and stuff is recognised internationally, and it gives it that level of kudos if you're exporting to overseas countries that you're a product stewardship scheme. Because we need to be transparent and we need to be able to show everything that we're doing. So that gives that tick from our overseas markets that they can believe what we're doing. There's no greenwashing in what we're doing.
And I suppose part of that is, and I think it's already been touched on, is when we put it up for recycling, we like to know it's going to recycling, preferably in New Zealand, but obviously it's not New Zealand based, a lot of it.
You need, it's a volume game. So when we send it to our factories over in Malaysia, they're doing 200,000-300,000 tonnes of soft plastics. We don't have that volume to generate it there. So volume's the game in that one.
So the solid trap isn't with plastic. Is that's turned into posts in New Zealand, or is that?
No, that's shipped off to Malaysia and Thailand.
Oh, so I thought those posts were made in New Zealand.
But the posts are, but they're not. Plastic don't make those posts. That's Future Post, which is a separate company.
But aren't they using solid trap?
No, they're using bread bags.
Household, consumer soft plastic.
Really.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I thought they were using solid trap.
No. I mean, some of the solid trap gets turned into a product called Tough Board, which is what you can line your sheds and stuff with. It's a thick plastic sheet. So there are some other uses for solid trap, but inherently the plastic, it has memory. So if it's a soft plastic, it really shouldn't turn into a hard plastic. It just shouldn't. So.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Very good. Thank you, Tony. It's been very enlightening. If in future you need support for something, or please reach out to us and we'll see what we can do. So
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Like
you've highlighted, there's a lot out there that we need to be aware of and keep going forward. So
and we are focusing not just on the farmers and growers, we are focusing on the supply chain as well. So
Yep.
any factories or pack houses or anything that are using plastic, you know, we're wanting to collect that as well, because if it's an LDPE, it's an LDPE, we can process it. So we've got systems in place. So let's just capture that as it goes through.
Yeah. Because I see now one of your recycling trains is shrink wrap pellets. Yeah.
Yep. So we're doing that for free at the moment, but we will be looking to work with the shrink wrap and pellet wrap companies to make that a scheme as well, because there's an awful, and that can be recycled in New Zealand because it's clear and clean. We can send that through to that group in Auckland and they'll process it up there quite happily. Yeah.
Yeah.
And pot plants as well. We're doing pot plants shortly, and that will be recycled in New Zealand.
See that? Yep. Yep. Because is that through the Mitre 10?
No, we're doing through farming, through forestry. It's about 500 million pots that go into the market a year, so it'll be a good one. It's all PP as well.
Yeah. Okay. All good. Thank you. Recommendation on page whatever it was. Not sure what page it is. At the beginning there, to receive the agenda. Page 4. Page 7. Sorry. Yeah. Someone move that. I'll move it. Brian seconded it. All those in favour say aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carried.
Tuesday.
We are having lunch at the end of the meeting if you want to stay, Tony, but yeah.
I've got to shoot off, but thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Yeah, please everyone reach out if you've got any questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Item 6, Taranaki Environmental Zero Waste. You want to lead that, Abby, or pass that over?
Head straight to the expert.
Yeah.
Oh, kia ora koutou, and kia ora to anyone who's watching. Thanks for having me. Recently Kaulari Tuku Winoa, cutlery, jewellery. That's how you remember my name. So I wear a couple of portai, I suppose we all do. So one of them is the team leader of education here at the Regional Council, and as part of that I run the EnviroSchools kaupapa for Taranaki. I'll grab one of these. Don't have anyone magically doing it for me. Okay. Thanks, Marie. Laree Jones and Marie Jones. It can be very challenging. Marie, if you can flick on for me, that would be great. So for those of you who just want a bit of a what is EnviroSchools, here's a very wordy slide about the kaupapa. So it's been around since the 1990s, started in Kirikiriroa in Hamilton, and is now across Aotearoa in the 16 different regions. 15 of those are delivered through regional councils. So the regional council is in charge of the delivery of the kaupapa, and the success comes from the partnerships that we have locally. So the three, in this case, the 3 district councils feed into this kaupapa for delivery in their districts. So I'm talking and allowing you to read so you can appeal to different users. Try this again. I've got it. Awesome. All right, I've got a spelling mistake. We're not dealing with empowered learners. We're dealing with empowered learners. These are our guiding principles. So not a book of rules. This is our overarching, this is how we run our day. So we're grounded in Te Ao Māori. Everyone's learning. We've got respect for everyone. Hopefully, eventually, the whole community picks up the vibe, and our empowered learners are taking information home and leading the behaviour change. So that's a little bit more on what I talked about before about how the kaupapa actually works. So our national organisation is called Toimata Foundation, holds the thread and the strategic overview for the whole kaupapa across Aotearoa. And then each of us implements it in a way that suits our region best, suits our learners best. We've got over 1,600 schools and kindergartens engaged across Aotearoa, and quite a lot of those here, so 70 something. I'll get up to that in a minute. But 180 odd facilitators that are actually on the ground doing the doing. So another little visual for those of us who like visuals. This is what it looks like in action. So Toi Mata has partnered with Te Maori Tau to give us our Te Ao Māori foundation. They deal with the regional coordinator, in this case me, and then I've got 3 education support officers who deliver environmental education and sustainability education, in this case Enviro schools, throughout our primary to secondaries. And then we also in the background have an in-kind partnership where we've got 3 other facilitators supporting 24 kindergartens in Taranaki. And then we've got a whole lot of schools and kindergartens, early childhood centres doing some awesome stuff. So that's down the bottom is what it looks like here, which is what we've already talked about. So apart from our guiding principles, we've got some really deep dive kind of areas that we always engage in. So every single one of our schools or kindergartens will look at these subject matters at some point in their time. And I think later on in the slides I've got how it plays out, but 100% of our schools and early childhood centres engage in zero waste activities. And for us, zero waste is a hard aspirational achievement. We just around lowering waste, and our focus is waste avoidance. So let's have a look at some of the things that we do. So you've seen me after we did a census in 2017, you've seen me in 2020, and now we're 2025. So unfortunately, we've been really spread across the time frame, but I don't want to like bore you all the time. Just come in little bits of awesome. So most of our schools will engage in almost all of these things, and the things that are in red, we can't deliver unless we get extra funding. So we usually apply to Stratford and New Plymouth District Council for their zero waste fund. And South doesn't have one, does it?
No.
Oh,
don't think so. Yeah, so at the moment we just sort of eke out what we can to share the love with South when they want things. But in general, we're just doing a whole lot of learning, and we're repurposing existing items. So we're not dealing with the snazzy yellow lid bin. We're way at the other end of that, and we're repurposing things that are already in existence. So nude food is around not having single-use plastic in your lunch boxes. Goose paper means good on one side. So we get a lot of that in early childhood and early years in general, where you've done something on a piece of paper, it's no good anymore, but it goes into a container and we pull it out and we'll do artwork or some practicing of our writing on the other side, making sure that we're using the most of that. And then that paper would go into a bucket of water that we end up making fire bricks out of. So fire bricks, we're sitting around we're in a room full of people that know what I'm talking about, but I'll just say it anyway. So we've got fire brick makers, smushed up paper. We put it all in there, squeeze the water out, dry it out, and it becomes something you can use in winter time for your fire. So that none of that paper is ending up in the recycling space. We're using it from purchase to end of use. That's the way we try and look at things from an EnviroSchools point of view. Yeah, a lot of the stuff, we're not the plastic police by any means. We don't go in there and go, ooh, with our little, horrible face on us. We're about encouraging behaviour change and inspiring new behaviours in our tamariki. As part of that, we also end up helping and supporting our kayako and our teachers and our whānau at home. So through that, we do things like running a big green gifting workshop and having a whole lot of examples on how you can share love without buying stuff. And conscious consumerism workshops are huge, and all sorts of different stuff. Do lots of waste audits, and then ending up finding the connection between other parts of our other key theme areas. And in this case would be not going to the supermarket and buying stuff in plastic. We'd be growing it or supporting someone locally. Then we'd be cooking with the seasonal produce, not throwing half of the product away, using, making stock with the rest of it and all sorts of other stuff, and then encouraging people with chickens or pigs or connections to the community to deal with the rest of that stuff. So again, it doesn't end up getting to the landfill or the composting system or any of that. We're actually just dealing with stuff. I could rattle on forever. Here's some of the stuff visually that you could see that we've done before. We also like to support people's gardens, so we'll wrap up some seeds and label them in, usually it's goose paper or newspaper. We do a whole lot of Tetra Pak weaving, because at the moment Tetra Paks are just going to landfill. So Tetra Paks, everyone knows what they are, soy milk products and a variety of other things. We're into creating new items out of those things, and also developing skills that can be transferred to other areas. Teach people how to make their own soap, laundry products, shampoo, conditioner bars. This is sort of ties in sometimes with that green gifting stuff. Make your own dish wipes, dishcloths, which end up having an end of life going into the compost once you're sick of them, because we choose the right materials. So that's either 100% cotton or bamboo or a mix, and they last forever. Bottle top art, all sorts of different stuff. Nature in the classroom. That one's a good one too. Teachers are really interested in that around the end or the start of the year. We have some kayako that just throw all their shit in the rubbish bin at the end of the year and buy a whole lot of nice, new, pretty looking, organised things. Whereas our job is to inspire replacing plastic maths counters with acorns that we've collected through the year or something like that. It's the same kind of concept. Put in a cornel, a woven kete. Instead of having plastic in the classroom, you've got another use that comes out of nature. So waste is, for us, there's a much bigger picture, and everyone in this room and pretty much everyone that still is around at the moment has been born into this kind of environment where waste is part of our life, and having some kind of a wasteful attitude is sort of a little bit in there, or a little bit historic. Even to the point of years ago, outside of wars, we were encouraged to just get out there and spend and all that sort of stuff. And the downside of those kind of instructions is that we end up with excess packaging and, a bit of we'll just throw that away and we'll buy a new one of those, and all that sort of behaviour. So in our teaching, we are talking about, using those phrases around the circular economy or donut economics, which leads us really nicely into how to keep it local, how to support local, and all of the choices that we're making impact our everything that we're doing locally. So we're reducing carbon miles if we're carbon emissions if we're supporting local organisations and local traders, local farmers, local producers. And it all ties back into how to take action for the environment and how to avoid the impacts of climate change. We do a lot around that manufacturing responsibility that we heard about Tony talking about today, that product stewardship. We get the young people to write letters and demand change. We don't know how much of an impact our young people are having at the moment. Our job is not to try and boost our self-esteem about this stuff. Our job is just to try and inspire one person to make a really good change. And part of that is also about teaching them about the interconnectedness of all these things, and making sure that they can see what they can do and how they can take action for the environment. That's me. These are the people or organisations that are currently supporting us at the moment. The 3 district councils have been supportive since we've been in Taranaki since 2003. So thank you all very much. It's been amazing. I have been popping around lately and just going, oh, I'm really sorry about not seeing you for so long, but we've done all these sorts of things, and I just wanted to, highlight this. And it is also the impetus of coming to see you today. We're in the background, we're helping, we're doing what we can. We're working collaboratively with others wherever we can. And there's all sorts of different things we're doing. I'm a big one for trying to get some additional funding to pick the nice to haves up. So normally I'd have lots of other little funding logos here. We do have a partnership with Mitre 10 Mega. So every year we run a competition for the schools to come and apply to us to do some really cool stuff in their gardens or to set up their composting systems or whatever it is. And again, that's that connection with the waste stuff as well. So questions, comments, abuse?
You mentioned the fire bricks, and in red it was extra funding. Is that just really for the brick machines?
Yeah, specifically we got MPDC funding 2 years ago through the waste levy for all of our North Taranaki schools and kindergartens to be able to get a fire brick maker. Sometimes it's a financial barrier. That's why I go out and try and get the extra funding so that we can reduce barriers for our schools regardless of their decile. And yeah, that was a really cool thing. So those are the kinds of things that don't die. They don't, they're metal, and they live forever. Udu School, in their last TRC Environmental Award, I noticed that one of the filming parts was them using their fire brick makers. It was really cool. It's like, but yeah, it's really neat. We probably don't need any more just at the moment. So when I'd go again, I'd probably go for the consumable kinds of things like the material for the beeswax wraps making and the wax. We started with beeswax wraps making with, bring an old t-shirt or an old pillowcase and all that sort of stuff. But there's a lot of tikanga around reusing those particular products that were previously on our person, and now we're using them around kai. So we moved away from that. And because they last a year or more, we use nice brand new material. So we actually have to go and buy that. And it has to be cotton, has to be 100% cotton, because eventually that stuff goes into the compost bin because it's all a natural product.
Going on from this program, what's the retention of the kids as they move through life to these principles?
It's really highly engaged in early childhood settings, and it ties in beautifully with Te Whariki, which is their early childhood curriculum. We lose a little bit of momentum going into primary, but it's still pretty awesome. Intermediate, they're very, oh my goodness, I'm having hormones and puberty, and there's opposite sex that I've just suddenly noticed. So you lose a little bit of excitement at that point. And then once you get into secondary, they get really siloed. So we've started working with secondary in a really different way. So this week, for example, we've had meetings with Taranaki Dio and Stratford High School about our job's really been about connecting the kayako that are in that school doing awesome stuff, but the systems are not connected. So individually, classes or subject matters or teachers are doing really great stuff, but they're doing it over here and we're growing lots of food and then it just dies. Whereas the food tech place are like buying in all this food that's seasonal that we're growing over here. So left hand, right hand. And so we're finding that that's our key job for the moment in secondaries. But the impetus is still there. When we talk to secondary students on their own, well, as a group, the climate change and taking action for the environment is all the stuff that they've learned before, that they still want to be doing. And then now our job is to tie it in with NCEA and achievement standards so that it's part of curriculum. Yeah. So we're gaining more momentum in the secondary space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Two questions. You said roughly 1,600 schools are signed up to Enviro schools. Well, what percentage is that out of New Zealand?
Out of New Zealand.
Is
don't know
that
actually
half
in
New
New
Zealand
Zealand.
schools, or was it?
Yeah, I don't know of the whole lot. I think there's like 9,000 schools in total,
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
But in Taranaki, we're in about 60% of the schools and in 100% of the kindergartens.
Okay. And you did mention Tetra Paks have to go to landfill?
No, most of them are currently going to landfill from contamination and all sorts of different reasons. The junction take them, but somebody has to drive up there and drop them off. They have to be nice and cleaned out and unpack them.
Bit of a long-term problem.
It's one of those problems.
It's a New Zealand. We're a really small country and we've got really bad recycling options.
Yeah.
There's more to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the product that's made out too. Yep. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments?
All good. Well, kia ora. Thank you very
Right.
much for having me. Yeah, really happy. Working away solidly in the background with the young people. I'll leave you. I won't steal any of your lunch. I'll
we can't
take
waste
off.
it. We're not allowed to waste food.
I don't waste food. It can be rehomed, and the rest.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
there's a whole lot of
that's not a
people in
problem.
other parts of this building that would really
I'm sure the
appreciate
cats
that.
will-
Pretty sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, ka kite.
Oh.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Laurie, for giving us that presentation. And yeah, hopefully we can see you again at some stage. And
Yeah.
keep up to date.
Hopefully not in 5 years'
No.
time. I'll make an effort.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ka kite.
So we've got a recommendation on page 13. I received the agenda memorandum presentation from Enviro Schools Waste. Someone move. Min, Murray, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you.
Jury report.
I'll zoom, I promise.
Waste, page 24, Waste Minimisation Officer's Report. In the hands of Grayson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I will try and go quickly. I recognise the time, and I have 3 things on the agenda, I believe. So I'll try and go quickly. So this activity report covers the activities of over summer mostly. So from October to March. Some are previous ones, some are still very close to being done in March. But given the next meeting isn't until September, I've included a few upcoming as well. So first on there, we have circular stationery. I've previously presented on this. So this was the second year of this program. So this is where we collect used stationery at the end of the school year from a few different schools and public places. And this year it was done a little bit different. So previously it was council officers doing all of the sorting and the distribution. This year we worked with On the House, which is the food rescue organisation. They provided a lot of volunteer time and the use of their facility out in Waiwakaio for the sorting and the storage. So that definitely helped operations a lot quicker. You'll see these numbers are sort of estimates. We can't count every single pen, would be there all day, but based on weights, we estimate about 2,600 items were collected. And you'll see there that only 3.8 kgs of waste went to landfill out of the 215 collected. So it is a really high recycling rate, just because we have TerraCycle who can take broken pens and bits and pieces, and then everything else is books, which typically can go for recycling. So really, really good numbers there. And 115 families were helped approximately on those 2 distribution nights. So the future of the program is not too sure yet. On the House potentially will be taking it over for us, but it's still up to their Board of Trustees whether or not they take that on, but it would allow for the program to be expanded into more collection places. This was only done at 7 locations for a couple of weeks, and the volume is quite significant. So definitely requires outside support for that one if it is to continue every year.
Is there a level of recipients still a need unmet?
We did find this year that the demand was not quite as high, but that is because I believe the Junction and Wise Charitable Trust also ran a stationery distribution program at the same time. So I think that definitely helped to alleviate some of the need. But the people we spoke to anecdotally would say that, this is a huge help. School stationery is incredibly expensive if you've got several children. And that was what we heard quite a lot, was that most families coming through had 3 or 4 kids all in school ages that all need calculators and 10 books. And it does definitely add up for families. So we weren't able to provide whole stationery lists. We would just give a bit of a mixed bag. But we heard every book helps, a couple of dollars here and there makes a big difference. So really well received. It is just quite labor intensive for the sorting. So that's why working with On the House was very helpful. And we hope that they will continue to support the program. Any other questions? Just a quick update on the Zero Waste Fund. So for New Plymouth, we opened the fund in October last year. We had quite a few, 7 applications, 3 of which were successful. So I've listed them there. I haven't had any updates yet on how those are going. They have only just received their funding or in early stages of receiving their funding. So that might be an update for the next round, but those are the organisations that we partnered with. A little bit different than what we've kind of done in the past. The City Brass Band was quite an exciting one to work with, not a waste stream you'd really think of too often, but 200 plus brass instruments is what they anticipate being able to repair. So that's quite an exciting one to see come through. We did also require them to do some teaching as part of that funding. So the people bringing items in will be sat with and taught how to do this themselves. So it kind of keeps it self-running in the future.
Is that completed or is that still ongoing?
It's still ongoing. So those ones are all only just kind of receiving their funding sort of late last year, and they have 12 months to do it. So it takes a little while to get things processed through council for payments, and Christmas break, obviously not a lot happens in December, January for these groups. So we should have an update the next round of.
So are you doing publicity around these?
So no, we don't typically, we just kind of provide the funding, and it's up to these organisations to sort of do that themselves. These ones are quite ring fenced, I guess. So that City Brass Band will be working kind of just with their band, I believe. Pretty much if you play a brass instrument, you're part of the band. So they've kind of captured the whole audience there. Waikato Central School obviously is quite targeted. The last one there, Zero Waste Solutions, again, haven't had an update from them just yet, but that'll be going and doing waste audits for companies. So that's something council typically has done, but the demand is very high for businesses wanting audits done. So this way, currently council provide it for free as part of our waste offices, but this is sort of an option for businesses that maybe want more support or ongoing audits that council can't just do all the time. So another one we've supported there. Do you have anything to add? No, good. Next one on there is actually sort of happening right now. So Love Food, Hate Waste. We always partner with their major campaigns. This one is around meal planning. So this week actually is Food Waste Action Week specifically. So this campaign runs for all of March, but this week is kind of the big one. So you may have seen, not on TV, but on different ads and bits and pieces on TVNZ On Demand and YouTube. They've been running these little promotional ads with Josh Thompson, which is a New Zealand comedian they partnered with. He's dressed as a giant broccoli. They are quite funny. Just encouraging families to really plan the food, plan meals before they go out and buy food. And they will provide us with a report at the end of the campaign of how much impact they believe they've had. So again, it's happening right now, so we probably won't get that for a few months once they've done the analysis. And we just support that through a few different avenues. So some of us, Stratford and New Plymouth, have just done media and internal activations. And South Taranaki, any questions might be able to go to them, but you'll see a little flyer there of some free events that they're holding in partnership with Budget Advisory Services, just to work more closely with people about planning meals on a budget. So some in community action and then a lot of media as well.
So what sort of I'm just sort of thinking about in coordination with supermarkets and things like that. Are you blending in with them, or
Yeah.
I know it's probably a negative from their point of view, but if they actually can be seen to be helping the community and getting better value out of their purchases.
Yeah, absolutely. So Love Food Hate Waste does partner with supermarkets quite a lot. So the last campaign they did, they partnered with Countdown. This time I believe they've partnered with New World. They also partnered with HelloFresh, which is like a huge company for meal boxes. So I think they, again, like what Tony was saying earlier, that it looks good for the companies actually to kind of be seen to be encouraging people. So yes, supermarkets want you to buy lots of food and they don't care if you use it or not, but they do sort of have this responsibility, and it seems to be quite common now for those big supermarkets to get on board with these campaigns. They are national, so Love Food Hate Waste does get funding from MFE to run these. So again, you would be able to put their logo on it is always good promotion for them as well. All right. Next one down. So just an update. Our officers at MPDC did a waste audit at Girls High. So Girls High is quite a large school, 1,400 students. So you can imagine the waste that they produce on a weekly basis. I just included a few statistics there, just about the potential that school could have for diversion, if once it's kind of shown to them the size of the waste problem. So over the next year, we're hoping that if they follow the recommendations made by officers, they could save about 11,000 kgs going to landfill. So really positive. Sometimes it just takes seeing the waste in front of you to see the size of the problem. So quite hard to get into high schools typically for audits. They're a little, typically primary and intermediate are a bit more receptive, like Laree said. Secondary can be a bit sort of lose interest, but yeah, to get into Girls High for the first time in a long time was really a great win for officers there. Next one, so just a quick update on the Repair Cafe. So Repair Cafe is something we've talked about quite a lot. Stratford has been doing for a long time. MPDC is looking to move into the Repair Cafe space. So we did a bit of a trial just within the Civic Centre, just, to see what the interest would be from staff and to kind of find find repairers within our organisation first. They were quite successful. So we had 12 items brought in for those. The same sort of items we've seen at Stratford of textiles and electrical being pretty high up there. Electrical work is always very coveted, especially when it's for free. So not surprising to see that be a main request at those events. And I believe the plan at this stage is to look at moving into some public events, but not too sure on the date of those at this stage. No.
Not sure.
There's no charges for any of these services?
No, so that's part of the model of Repair Cafe, is that it's volunteer. So people volunteer their time. Typically parts and things, it normally, there is a cost involved for those. And the purpose of the event is to teach the person bringing it in how to make the repair themselves. That can obviously, sometimes people don't want to sit there and learn how to fix their clock, but it is part of the point is to pass on that knowledge. A lot of, I know for Stratford that their repairers are often retired trades people. And so that knowledge is quite important to pass down. So that is the point of repair cafes. It's just kind of they require quite a lot of space and time and planning and bits and pieces. So it's making slow progress to try and get those up and running. But it is something we are still looking into.
Yeah, just sort of wondering on that regard whether having a charge, particularly for electrical items and things like that, just helps spread that cost around a bit. Yeah.
There are electrical repairers
into the submission we're making later
yeah.
on of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, there are electrical repair places around Taranaki, so that
less and less.
Yes, definitely less and less, as the mindset is not always to repair something, just buy a new one. Definitely is more common. But I think the point is that the stuff that people are bringing in to be repaired, it doesn't take business away from the repairers, because that person likely wouldn't have paid for it to be fixed. They would just throw it away. So it's kind of filling more that I know for Stratford, they get a lot of stuff dropped off as donations. People go, if you can fix it, you can have it. That's quite common as well. And then you have to have something to do with all of those items. Bikes is a really, really big example for Stratford. They get donated a lot of bikes and other small appliances. Vacuums, if you can fix it, you can have it. So again, you have to have kind of an outlet for all of that stuff to go somewhere as well. So quite a lot of planning involved in setting up quite a permanent repair cafe. All right. Events. So summer is obviously a pretty peak event time for MPDC and for all councils. I've just included some statistics there of how many events we've had and the average diversion rate. Not included in there is Te Matatini, so that was held obviously a few weeks ago. I didn't have the statistics to add into that at the time, but I do now. So they had 22.8 tonnes of waste, 12.1 tonnes was diverted, which is another great result. And Festival of the Lights, I believe, is also in here, which is why the total waste diverted is quite high compared to previous reports. But again, we're seeing really high diversion rates coming out of our events. We've been running events in quite a similar way for a long time with the different with the waste stations and the volunteers, so people are quite used to the process now. I mean, we can definitely see that with the numbers climbing. Right, probably one of the most, I would say, quite exciting events on here is the Milk Top competition that Stratford runs. So you might have seen the media releases about this and the fabulous photos of the Stratford Mayor in the little boat. It was a really great prize giving there. So an update on this, because I have previously spoken about it, but this will now be becoming a regional competition from term 2 this year. So MPDC and South Taranaki will be joining the competition with Stratford. I believe as of yesterday, there were 6 schools for South Taranaki. We're at 7. We did have to cap it. Obviously, we have a lot of schools. And sorry? Excuse the pun. Yes, we do have to cap it somewhere. Because you'll see from Stratford, they had 11 schools and 135,000 lids. So if we collected from all of our schools, it might be quite a large volume. So we have had to limit it there, but we are hoping, we haven't set an official goal, but I think we're kind of estimating around that probably 500,000 mark across the region in 10 weeks. At first, we didn't think that was realistic, and after the amazing success of Stratford, it does seem quite realistic and quite a large volume that we might have to deal with.
So they are being moved to recycling.
Yes. So
despite your reluctance to take them on through the MRF system. So
they won't be going through the MRF. So the whole point of this competition was lids is the #1 contaminant in the recycling bin by a mile. Not necessarily milk lids, but milk lids is the one that we can recycle in Taranaki, so at the junction and down at Egmont Refuse. So all of these lids that you see in those pictures there, and it was such a significant amount, it's hard to fathom how thick that layer on the basketball court is there. There were definitely milk top angels being done by the children. It was excellent. They then all had to be picked up and taken to Egmont Refuse for chipping. So again, if now with all 3 councils being involved with this, the volume we anticipate to get will be quite a lot. But it keeps it all out of landfill, and it keeps the contamination, keeps lids off the bottles, which is the main focus of this, is that contamination piece.
So have you seen a change coming through the MRF on lids while this was in action?
I haven't seen an update from Stratford. It would be based on their bin audits, I think would be the best way.
Not through the MRF? You don't differentiate when they get to the MRF?
Not at the MRF, no, because again, volumes truck-wise, it would be quite significant. For Stratford, it would be shown through their bin audit data, but I haven't had an update from them about it. This only ended in December for them, so they ran it across 2 terms, so they did have a lot longer to collect. But again, some of these schools have 7, 9 sort of students. The winning school, I think, only has 7 students, so quite impressive how many each student collected. We are wondering how. When you'll see the results on their Mako school, 974 lids per family, there are 7 students at that school. So quite surprising, a little bit suspicious, but
Big
again,
money out of
great
stretch.
results. So won't push that too far. But yeah, so we are measuring the success of the competition. Well, the winners based on lids per student. Obviously, the bigger schools are going to collect more lids, so that's the fairest way to divvy it up is lids per student or lids per family. Stratford did it by family just because 2 siblings at the school, you know, not quite fair to count that as 2, I guess. Because mum and dad are supplying the same amount, you know, so they did it by family. I don't anticipate we will be able to do that with a 700 student roll, but yeah, that's how they ran it for this time. And you can see the weight there again, 230 kilos. It doesn't sound like a lot in terms of typical waste data, but the volume was an ocean. So it, you know, it's the weight maybe isn't as impressive as the count there. But yeah, great photo opportunity. It was a fantastic day, and I'm glad that the mayor got in the little boat and rowed in the Milktop Ocean. It was excellent. Right. I don't have too much more of an update on the Stratford Pool Complex. Unfortunately, Stratford is not here. But a big part of this was, so the TSB Pool Complex needs to come down, and rather than just demolishing it, they are looking to deconstruct it. So it was a big part of the contract, that as much of the materials could be recovered as possible, and they will either be used for other projects or sent off for recycling. So big cost savings. Again, I'm not too sure on the cost savings. It's possibly hidden in another council report, but yeah, so that should be underway as far as I'm aware.
That's an interesting outcome that it actually came out cheaper, so it was commercially viable.
So I believe the update I received was that the company that got the contract, it was part of the negotiation that they would get to keep all of the material that was salvaged. So therefore they can take the metal for scrap, or they can use the materials for something else. So that was a way of sort of paying them less, but they get to keep all the stuff they save. So an incentive to save it because you get to keep it if you pull it out properly. So quite a unique way of doing it rather than just ripping it all down and putting it in a skip. So yeah, hopefully we'll have some photos once they do it. But yeah, quite an interesting outcome for that building.
I could just quickly speak to that.
Yeah, great.
The reason why we strongly wanted to see that building recycled is because there was demand from the community. Some people thought it was worth saving the building or keeping the building for other facilities, which it wasn't, or the cost to bring that up to that standard would be significant. And so that was why, yeah, as elected members, we asked that was really strongly considered as part of the contract, because there was that demand there. So it was trying to like appease some of the community. And I think it's just about done.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it's gone really smoothly. The contractor that took the job, extremely professional. We've obviously done this, you know, it's what they do. So by all accounts, it's gone really, really well.
And it is true that it was a lower cost than just demolishing centre landfill.
Yeah, because essentially there was a credit in what they could take and reuse or sell on as scrap. Yeah. So I think that might have been broken down so that we could see it.
Yeah.
I can't remember something being said around that.
Brilliant.
All right. Last 2 on here from South Taranaki. So not sure how much of this has previously been shared, but South Taranaki is sort of in the early stages of investigating the feasibility of opening a kind of resource recovery centre. So the team actually came up to New Plymouth recently, so back in February, to visit the sorting depot and the junction and kind of see how those facilities operate. And I believe down to Wanganui as well, to see how their facility runs. Again, if there's any questions, the team is here, so can provide more of an update. But just looking at sort of, obviously the scale compared to New Plymouth is a bit different, but just how the facilities work, what is accepted, what isn't. The junction manager, Kevin, gave a very in-depth lot of suggestions of, learning from the junction. Obviously, it's been open for quite a while now, so they can pass on that knowledge for others looking to open those resource recovery centres. They've had time to work out the teething, so it was really good to hear his insights. And last one, again, so this is actually coming up next week, but I've popped it in here. So there is an event being held, BizLink, business after 5 at the TSB hub. Sharon might be able to provide a bit more info on that if there's any questions. But it's just bringing together people within the community businesses and sharing the work they're doing in the sustainability space. And I believe Stratford District Council is going, so Peter McNamara is going to be speaking about Repair Cafe down there as well. So just bringing like-minded people together for that event. Is that right? Cool.
Well, good. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, at a previous meeting, you mentioned about the majority of waste in our own council with the coffee cups.
Yes.
I did have quite a long conversation with the CEO, and he said, well, it should be a simple fix. We can set those rules. So what are we doing about that? Have you had conversations going back from the CEO or?
I personally haven't. That would be through our, we have commercial waste officers within our team. Obviously, you'll know with MPDC, there's been some restructuring, so people have been moving around, and a lot of work's sort of been put on pause or hold. We agree it should be a pretty easy fix. I'm glad that CE is aware of it. Yeah, something we can follow up with our officers.
I'll follow up with the CEO as well.
Yeah.
To see
Yeah.
if they just carry that on his job. Okay, thanks.
Right.
Thanks, Chairman. Two things, and this is a comment passed on to me by several people. The WOMAD event, not enough bins. I don't know if this is true or not. They said the bins are at the gate, or they're right down the bottom by the front of the stage, or they're right at the top by the hill, and everybody in the middle misses out. So it's just a comment passed on me, so I'll just relate that to you. The other one I have is the lids. Awesome what Stratford did. Absolutely awesome. The lids, I understand other regions in New Zealand can recycle the lids through their yellow bins. The machines will sort them and do them. Is that true? But our machine won't?
It is. So unfortunately, MFE has made it a regulation that lids can't go through recycling facilities or through curbside. So even if councils previously did accept lids, back in February when standardisation happened, a complete no lids was put in place. I can't speak to what other councils are doing, whether they ever really told their community that, but they wouldn't be allowed to publicly say lids are fine. It's part of the standardisation. I would be surprised if they accepted lids. It really depends on the kind, but the big teeth for the, at the Murph, little tiny lid, it's going to get stuck. So I would be surprised, but some facilities very well could have, but it's not something that they're allowed to accept technically.
I didn't realise it was standardised. Okay, through stewardship, are they going to the manufacturer and saying, tie my lid to my bottle so it can't be taken off, so it can't go walk about and end up wherever or blowing around? Because there's lots of containers I get on the farm, the lids are actually tied to the container. They've actually got a strap on it, and you can't, that lid is for that container and that container only. And
it is quite common through Europe that on drink container, the lid does not detach. It's very standard. I believe here the product stewardship for plastics and for lids has sort of been started to roll out at a few councils as a trial, but it was actually still to separate them and take them to, they worked with quite a few Foursquares and dairies that had collection boxes set up to collect lids, because again, the government will not, they've just introduced no lids in curbside. So there won't be, I don't believe, any push to reintroduce lids going back into curbside, because some facilities can, some facilities can't. So the blanket is just no. Regarding the WOMAD question, I don't believe council manages the waste for WOMAD at all. Is that correct?
So yes, WOMAD, the bulk of it is hired by TAT. They hire a third party to manage their waste.
Okay.
I have worked
so
there previously for the third party waste. So I can, the statement would probably be along the lines that at WOMAD people roam and migrate. It's not like a packed cold concert where they stay put for 3 hours and the bins are placed on the migration. And there are also people walking the grounds for those that don't have consideration of taking stuff. So the strategy is minimising the infrastructure based on the movement of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not us.
Totally
which
understand.
is-
Totally understand.
Yeah. Right, any other questions? No, perfect.
All good, thank you, Grayson. Recommendation on page 24, we receive a memorandum and note the activities of the Waste Minimisation Officer.
Not happy to move.
Thank you. Seconded, Midden. All those in favour say aye.
All right.
Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Annual data report. Once again, with you, Grayson.
Thank you. Again, this is from the last financial year, so I will sort of quickly go through. I did touch on a few points at the last meeting, but we decided to bring it to this meeting to go through a few more of the figures. Probably the best way to look at them is I've included all of the graphs so that we can see the change over the last. I've just done 5 years. We do have data much further back, but I think the last 5 is when it takes into account the infrastructure changes at Curbside and things. So it paints the most realistic picture of how the region is doing. So starting with total tonnes to landfill. So I have included the numbers, but changing by percents, it doesn't really look like too much. 3% down is still down, which is fantastic. I specifically called out STDC as well because they had a 9% decrease in their landfill for the year. So quite exciting. That is, again, when you look at the total tonnes, it is really significant, and you can see it reflected there in the regional graph there that we had a pretty big drop for landfill overall from all sources at landfill. So same thing with recycling. So down 0.7 doesn't sound too impressive there, but remembering that recycling doesn't weigh particularly, it doesn't weigh very much. So the figure there, so 8643 down to 8583, it is volume wise, that is quite significant as well. So means that for both avenues, landfill and recycling, we had a decrease overall as a region. Different councils had different, so MPDC did increase slightly, whereas the other councils did go down. But overall, as a region, we came down in both categories, which is what we like to see for the region. I have also included there where the materials are coming from and what they are in our overall picture of waste management. So just so we can see, scrap metal, the sorting depot, and our diversion as well. So I've just included a bit of for where it's all coming from in that next one down as well. And what our diversion currently is overall. So that's at 28% of our total material is being diverted at this stage. Right, and also, but within that, you can see that our total tonnes of materials has dropped for last year. So it was on an increase for 3 years in a row. You'll see figure 2. It was quite a big increase. And this is the first year we've had it come down. Well, last financial year it's come down, which is also really great to see. Probably the most impressive figure in terms of change is waste per capita. So waste per capita, again, 4% doesn't sound like very much, but when you put it in that graph there, you can see it's been one of the most significant drops we've seen since COVID, when people were buying a lot less, we're not out and about takeaways and such. And that's what we are attributing this likely to, that people are just were producing less waste. Could be cost of living.
Economic activity.
Yeah, economic activity. Again, it's hard to pinpoint, but for that significant of a drop, that is likely what is causing that. Great for us. No complaints of waste per capita going down, but that's our likely answer for that one there. Same thing can be said for recycling. So again, 2% for the region isn't too much, but recycling coming down is a good sign when waste comes down. If recycling goes up but waste goes down, that's still good. Kind of depends the overall production. So again, we've seen everything come down for the year, which is great. So recycling coming down is not a negative, that is also a positive. The only one I will say that we did see again, not an increase of material, but an increase of where it's coming from, is from landfill per household. So that measurement is done on curbside only versus the number of properties that receive curbside. So again, what we attribute that to is people are jam packing their bins more rather than paying to take it to the transfer station. So it's not that there's more waste being produced, it is still less. It's just more of it is coming from households jamming their bins full. Again, cost of living, it's not particularly surprising that transfer stations maybe haven't been as busy and the landfill trucks have been working overtime. So again, that's what we would attribute that to. But also within that, contamination. So I did touch on this previously, that in the last financial year, we only had 3 months out of 12 hit over 20% contamination. Every other month was under 20 for the first time ever in probably, I think, the last 5 years of collecting contamination data, and we ended the year on an 18.7 average. So in our WMMPs, the goal is 15, but we have until about 2029 that we would sort of expect to see that. So being under 20 within our first sort of 2 years after the MMP is promising for that one there. And
once again, could that be attributed to lower economic activity?
Potentially, I think part of it we're attributing it to is the standardisation of recycling across the country that happened in February last year. Obviously, with the rules being the same across the country, people are kind of getting the same message everywhere. It takes a little while for people to really get that message, but we can, I mean, again, we see it in the results that under 20% for the first time really ever is likely from that.
Do we advertise that figure anywhere? Do we put it in the newsletter? Do we put it on the app or anything like that? How does that get to the person at the end of the street that's got a yellow bin? How do they know what
it's worthwhile?
Yeah. How do they know that? Okay, I'm making a mistake 18% of the time. You know, on average. How does that get to the common person at the end of the street? How do we do that?
So, in terms of broadcasting the regional kind of contamination numbers, there are ways that we could publicise that. I think on a personal basis, we do a lot more auditing, so households know how they're doing on a personal basis. So I haven't included an operational report this time round. There wasn't too much to say, but the bin auditors that come around and give you your red, orange, or green, because we now have 3, they're doing about 5,000 bins a month across the region, which is significantly more than last time. And so people are getting more, they're being checked more often. And so we're hoping to see that households won't be left to make bad choices for long extents of time like they previously were, which is one of the sets of data that we hope to start being able to also record to see, well, we have the data, but to start reporting as well, how households individually are sort of tracking. You know, if a household's getting red tag after red tag after red tag, that, you know, speaks kind of volumes of attitudes versus green after green after green. You know, that's what we want to be seeing. So that's quite helpful information to have for our team versus the overall regional figure. It is still great, but again, each council within that, the number's a little bit different, and then suburb within that's a little bit different. So sort of expanding how we tell people how well we're doing, maybe a bit more targeted. It might mean a bit more than 18% for the region.
Are they targeting certain areas of that? I mean, I've had my bin and it's had a green sticker on it each time, which is good. But I've had that 3 times in the last 6 weeks, and I'm thinking, man, am I getting picked on here?
Yeah.
And I'm lucky I'm green each time. But you know, or is it that constant, or are they just picking areas? So obviously if they have to recheck.
Yeah, so I think previously it would be sort of twice a year is all we could really get to. With the increase in auditors, it's more frequent. I think, and Jacob may be able to speak more on this if I'm wrong, but Stratford was saying the same thing yesterday when I was there, that certain streets that are on the way to other suburbs are getting hit a little bit more, because again, if you're on a main road, the auditor has to walk past to get to the next place. it sort of depends, some suburbs may get hit more than others.
Repeat visits.
Yeah, if
Doesn't worry,
yeah, if you're getting greens, it's not really a concern.
Yeah,
but
because others might be going from red orange or from orange to green because they've made improvements. So they're getting feedback on those taxes.
Can I just interrupt just for a moment? There's a vehicle with its lights on, QUT 463. Is that anyone here? You can.
does sound like a council vehicle.
Who knows? It's a modern one.
No, it's not mine. It's
Okay.
not mine.
Rightio, that's all right. Carry on.
The other question, you covered it because you haven't finished, but we're monitoring all this savings and and how everything's gone down. I'm just concerned about what's gone up. And are we monitoring if it's your area or if it's enforcement area of the fly tipping issues? Have they gone up? Is that your area to monitor, or who's monitoring it? Because that could be once again economic times.
I did. So I did have a look at the illegal dumping data that we get.
It'd be good to see what trends those are, because we've got to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, one thing I did note, sorry, it wasn't included in the report, but one thing I did note was that tyres is still being dumped, which is quite surprising considering that they are free to drop off at transfer stations 5 at a time. So in the discussion on the way here, we had discussed that maybe that's just something the public isn't particularly aware of.
Are they the result of burnout tyres, or they just?
I'm not too sure where they're coming from. I think tyres has always been a pretty common one for dumping, and people maybe just don't know that it's free now. So instead of dumping it in the bush for us to pay to go pick up, just take it to the transfer station would be preferred.
Probably education.
Yeah, part of the education. I think we do get some of the data come through our team, but typically it's more of the infrastructure and roading, I think, that holds it. But I could
maybe we can merge.
I can add it into the end of financial year report for July.
It merges with your data.
Yeah. So the illegal dumping is counted within that that overall regional figure. So all the sources of data, it comes through the MRF, through the transfer station, so it gets counted. But I can add it as its own line in the next report if that is requested. I think that's it for that report, maybe. Yeah. Any other questions on the data report? It's a bit late, obviously last financial year, but
it's just, like I say, some of those figures there that I suppose it's hard to figure them out. That some of them they're still going up, but I suppose the population's increasing in some areas, which is sort of it's hard to pinpoint the source or how it relates to an individual household, I suppose.
Yeah, I think the main figure that we really focus on, that I like to focus on, is waste per capita. So that's total tonnes in general, but also how much each person is producing. Because as population increases, of course, we're going to see an increase in the amount of waste being produced. But if each person's producing less, that's done with all sources and then across total population. But also total tonnes to landfill did also go down. So despite there being, I think it was only a 1% increase in population, we did still see a decrease. So that's hopeful. If you saw a 2% rise in population and a 2% rise in waste, it would be expected. But for the last financial year, population went up, waste still went down. So kind of the best we can hope for, really, in that sense.
Just one more question, just my observation, but I wasn't at one of them, so I don't know. But and I wasn't at Te Matatini either, but I saw on social media their grounds were perfect,
immaculate
after every day, which is really good. WOMAD was similar. I don't know what the Christmas at the Bowl was like. If that was perfectly clean, but it would have been good to compare, because I know concerts are terrible as well. So it'd be interesting to see how they managed to get the message across, because everyone just picked up their bit, as well as WOMAD, but they've got a management team of rubbish. compared to the concerts. It'd be good to see if there's a recent concert and see the mess, and just see if we can figure out how it was achieved in either way.
Yeah, the different audience.
Yeah.
The different event.
People at a concert at the Taranaki, people at Taranaki would be represent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Naki of Taranaki.
Is it as simple as the band they're going to see saying, look, we really want to make a stance, and because they just come out and play, but for the sake of a couple of words, it can make a huge
like
difference
Christmas at the Bowl
by
absolutely
the band that they go and
say.
see. So I don't know if you're going to look into that, but I think it's important to see where the trend is and how we can fix it by.
Well, my previous role was implementing zero waste with the
Yeah, but I'm talking about the entertainers putting the message out there too.
Yep.
It becomes an acceptable thing to do rather than
Yeah.
It does.
It's not my problem.
They'd rather listen to the entertainer saying it than the council team. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm just thinking it might be something to look into to see where that trend is and how they have the message.
Yeah. I mean, because we do.
To the performance through the promoter.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, so it's tough.
Council can't put words in the promoter's
Contract?
artists. Yeah.
Probably can. Well, you could suggest it.
Yeah.
If that's their vibe, I mean, if we did actually know a Coldplay, they would have been all over it.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Yeah. So just something to think about.
Yeah. Thank you.
On food scraps, how
Which
well
big
is
team
that
this
going?
week?
How is that going?
How well is it going? Where's it going? What we're going to do in Taranaki, or I've just seen Wanganui has ceased. What's Taranaki's view on it?
So the only update I can sort of provide at the moment is the presentation rates of the food scrap bin continue to be quite low. I think the last time I received an update was about 24% of households are using them. That doesn't speak to the volume or the tonnes, that's just bin presentation rates. South Taranaki might not quite have an update yet from the contractor regarding the implementation of the bins. That's something we can include in the next report.
But from the audit, are you seeing green waste in there that should be in the bins, in the composting bins?
So we haven't conducted a swap audit in recent years.
People might be composting their own.
Yep, it is definitely possible that home composting would eliminate the use of green scrap bins. We did reach out to Auckland City Council somewhat recently because they've introduced a food scrap service, and they had almost identical figures to us. It started at about 37 and very quickly dropped to 24% usage. So a number one complaint we get is that we don't allow bin liners, like the plastic, the biodegradable liners. Auckland does, and they still have 24% presentation. So they actually don't help. People are, the main complaints is that it smells, or it's just easier to put food in your home little bin. If you do it right, it probably shouldn't smell, but it is pretty consistent. I'm imagining that's probably why Wanganui also originally put it forward, and then maybe after they did approach us about what our presentation rate was, and potentially that deterred them a little bit. But in terms of, so New Plymouth's always been sitting at around that 24, 25 for the last few years, I believe, but I'm not sure about South Taranaki since it was implemented in October.
So when as a council do we have that conversation where it's not really worth doing? Is it below 20? Would you advise us of that, or were you just saying, well, it's implemented and it looks good even though no one's taking it up? When would you come to us, or would you come to us to say, hey, look, I don't think this is working?
No, because presentation rate is one figure that we look at when we try and increase the usage, but the total weight that it is saving from landfill is still really significant. I don't think it's normally within these data reports. We normally look at waste and recycling, but food scraps, I believe, is still, in the hundreds of tons of
Where's
food.
that going though? Is it going?
Currently it goes up north.
Yeah, it goes up north, so that's what I mean. That's an extra cost as well.
Yep.
We haven't got a local, so there must be a time where it's getting economic.
So it's still cheaper to take the food scraps up north than it is to send it to landfill because we have to ship it either way. The cost to landfill is more. But also, again, I'm not on this panel, so I can't speak for the facility. There has been discussions about a Taranaki processing facility. I unfortunately can't provide an update. I'm not privy to those. But that is part of it. Taranaki is very isolated and getting things out is hard. Can't provide much more than that on the update, but it is still cheaper and it is still promoting the message that we want of keeping things out of landfill. So 24% might sound low, but the tons still make it worth it.
I thought, Murray, that you had money in your budget to build a facility, didn't you? Or was that
Sure it was
in the
from
never
memory, you guys
budget?
might know, it's in the Tongapurutu area somewhere. But then it had some iwi issues there. And
No, that's got a lot of other issues.
Yeah. But it's a matter of finding a place and getting approval through the RMA, which is quite difficult, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So I mean, it would make it a lot, because it's only the food scrap side, it's not the general waste side. So it would be an easier facility. But
I think with the food scraps, it's part of what our team is looking to run is, promoting people to use it. But the tons will always make it worth it because anything we're not sending to landfill saves us money. And from an environmental perspective, organics in the landfill is like the worst of the worst. So anything we can save from going there. Plus the infrastructure is already in place. We already have the waste management trucks that can pick it up. Taking it away is always hard for a council service to be taken away. Even if only 24% of people use it, those 24% of people might not be very happy if we took it away. So
I suppose with that question, you're saying Auckland gets that too. Is anyone getting a better percentage than that?
We don't really typically get information from other councils on what their curbside and situation is, only partners that we work quite closely with. So Auckland's the only one that we've reached out to specifically, just because they did such a big campaign push for the food scraps bin. We wanted to see how it went. Very similar to us.
Just on the, I understand the plastic bag thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to get it dirty and I have to wash my bin out every freaking week or every second week, sorry. Just a lady in a car when the truck broke down one time, she'd come out, she's putting a green waste bin out, so I couldn't help that, chat to her and ask her all about it. She freezes it.
Yeah.
Yes.
She freezes it into like ice cream containers and just tips them out.
It is a common...
fills the green thing up with frozen blocks of ice. And she says it doesn't smell, it doesn't do anything, it's clean air.
Yep. It is. So there are ways that people, can do that. They can freeze it. We do allow a small amount of brown paper or newspaper in there. It's a discretionary item, so don't fill the whole thing with it. But folding up, your weeks with the food scraps would be fine. Some people just don't put meat in it. Fine. There are ways if you are dedicated, and it's just part of our team's job to encourage people to do that. So
it's maybe an education thing, but
yeah,
I never even thought of freezing, and I was blown away. I was like, "What?" Like, it was really good. So she was like very recycled everything, absolute 100%. She was like, yeah,
all good. I think we've probably had a pretty good discussion on that. Thank you. Someone move the recommendations on page 32.
I'm happy to move.
Thank you. Second up. And all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. And the Consumer Guarantees Right to Repair Amendment Bill. Who's going to...
It's still me.
Racing you, even though Nick wrote it.
No,
yes.
It's still me.
Yep.
Right. So currently submissions are open for the public on the Right to Repair Consumer Guarantees bill. It has passed its first reading and it's now up for consultation until the 3rd of April. So quite good timing. Often submissions are not good timing for this. So it was great to be able to get one through the committee. Quite different to how submissions have run in the past, in my understanding. Normally they're incredibly long and they ask quite a length of questions. There was only 2 questions asked this time, which was, do you support or not? And then about technical wording in the legislation. So from council, not something we would normally dive into. It's not our area of expertise. So the submission that I have drafted just speaks to the impact that the bill would have on council. It supports our WMMP. It is actually specified in the WMMP that we would support a right to repair bill through a submission through this committee. So very, very timely here. Welcome to add any other amendments to the submission. This is just a draft. Yeah, if there's anything that would like to be added or removed, there is still time for that to happen, but just bringing the current draft to the committee for consideration.
One of the comments I sort of looked at, you've got there available for a reasonable period of the goods are supplied, so ability to stock parts and things like that. What's considered a reasonable time?
I believe
should a time be put on it, I suppose, is really what I'm saying.
I believe they have said 20 days is what they consider reasonable.
Oh, no, it was, I think after you purchase the goods, that there's
Parts available.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, parts, etc., information available.
It's quite common language for legislation to not specify. It would be the same in the current Consumer Guarantees Act, that what is considered reasonable is a bit up for debate.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, long meeting today.
Oh, you're going to stay for lunch? You're going to miss it on lunch?
Yeah. What were you asking?
Yeah, so within the submission, I've pulled out the main, there wasn't a lot changed to the legislation, so the Consumer Guarantees Act. They aren't proposing very significant changes to it. Those 5 bullet points that I've included there are really the main things that they will be doing. There are other, so I have seen other submissions from other councils. I worked quite closely with a few to see what they were saying, and also a few, the Sustainable Business Network is putting together a fantastic submission, more technical based about those words and what that means in practice. From council, we thought the best approach was just that this supports the work that council does, to highlight the savings it will have, from taking the pressure off waste services, off ratepayers by lessening the waste to landfill. So from a council perspective, that's what we anticipate to see as the benefit. So that's kind of what we've based our submission on, rather than the technical language, which is a bit outside of our realm.
So this is only for products manufactured in New Zealand?
No, I don't believe it is. No, so this would be
Everything sold.
everything sold in New Zealand.
Basically covered under the consumer
Emu stuff?
guarantee.
No.
Yeah, guaranteed.
Yeah, that's where it falls over.
Your chance of getting back to
Because unfortunately, everything sold in New Zealand, there's going to be an extra cost for this. And then
Yes.
you just go and buy things from Temu, which doesn't adhere to those rules. I'm just throwing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So probably the main part within the legislation that I think they've added to try and alleviate things like that is that the consumer can request their item to be repaired rather than replaced. If the manufacturer, so the likes of Temu, don't want to do that, technically, me as a consumer can take that terrible electronic somewhere else to be repaired, and the cost would need to be covered by Temu. I'm not sure how the government anticipates to do that, but that is what the legislation is saying. So a company,
I just put buy beware on there.
I'm not sure how they are going to police that, but that is the, probably more for the likes of like Sunbeam and Breville, kind of small appliance makers. They might decide, no, we aren't going to go into the repair space. We will just allow people to fix things through third parties, and they'll have to pay. Again, I'm not sure how they in practice will make that happen, but that is what the bill is saying. And that's what.
All I'm suggesting that this may direct people to go online even more. That's all I'm worrying about. Yeah.
One comment I had, and I'm not quite sure whether it would fit into this piece of legislation, is that does it cover ease of dismantling and then end of life for the goods that you're talking about? So, is it easy to pull apart to get to repair it, and then if it's not repairable, are parts recyclable, upcyclable, or thereabouts?
I don't believe it covers anything regarding end of life, so it's not a stewardship in that sense. It really just focuses on the repairability. What they do require is that, spare parts, software, the tools needed to dismantle it, and the instructions on how to do so are available. So currently, they don't want anybody else knowing how to dismantle an appliance. So they can charge you to fix it, or you have to go to a specialty place. So it would eliminate that secrecy, I guess, of how to do it.
Specialist tools to extract.
Specialist tools, so they have included that, which is promising, because they, could make a very specific tool that you need in order to get into it, and then it's completely useless. So I think within the bill, they have taken those things into account. Again, the bill is much longer than this. Those are just sort of the parts that I think are what we should be supporting. There are more technical aspects within the bill that I didn't include in the submission. But overall, the introduction of this, we hope as council would help with that repair space that we're trying to move into. I know Stratford complains a lot with their repair cafes not being able to get hold of user manuals. They're very difficult. Specialty tools, parts not available unless you're a registered repairer, things like that. It's taking away all those barriers.
Right. I think the ability to disassemble also facilitates recycling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you generally see this as a positive?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The manufacturers don't want you to fix it. They make it so hard for you to fix that with all those special tools, and
hopefully they do want you to fix it
online. No, they want to sell you a new one.
Used to be fixable.
Well, I got several people in business, own shops, retail. One of the comments, I rang them up and asked them that question, and one of their comments was that the Consumers Guarantee Act needs to be a lot longer. Was if you got a product and it says, you only got to be a warranty for 1 year, the actual store will only just say, we warranty it for 1 year. They follow exactly what the legislation says. He's noticed that on some of the expensive products, like maybe over 30, 40,000, it's still in 1 year. And you're buying, spending all that money, and it's still in 1 year. I buy a toaster and it's still 1 year, He said there's no graduating scale. If you buy a big item, that the scale doesn't go up. It's like blanket.
Doesn't the Consumer Guarantees Act cover reasonable expected life?
Again, yes, reasonable is up for debate.
And 1 year for some of these goods is not reasonable.
Yeah. And I guess that's what part of Consumer New Zealand does, and the different organisations submitting will probably be asking for things like that to be more defined. I think even putting 20 days as the maximum that a company has to get back to you for a request that you put in. Probably for a big company, it's not. A 20 days, I think, is quite consistent with what council requires for like Lagoima requests and such. 20 days sounds 20 working days. So a month like maybe, but
it's sort of like this. It drops off the table after
currently
15
there's no
days.
requirement at all to reply.
So John Deere's just having a big battle with the US government over exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
They won't let their computer programs out of their hands. They won't.
They have to now, don't they?
I think Trump's going to sort them out. But see, that's the thing. They want to keep the computer program, and you need the computers to get in to find out what's going on.
Yes.
You absolutely cannot do anything without a computer.
No. All good? Any other additions, etc., etc.?
If the committee is happy to accept the submission as is, then I can submit that once I get all the logos on that. If there's any changes, then I'm happy to make them.
All good.
We still luckily have a whole week, which doesn't normally happen with submissions.
I'll also move that page 41, we receive the memorandum and take the notes accordingly. All those seconder? Brian, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Any other? Anything looking forward to next meeting? September? Early days yet, but think about it. All right. Closing karakia.
Kia uru mai, haura, hauka, kia ora, kia roto, kia mere, e karaki kai, no mai ua, o te wā, o tēnā kina, o te wā tai, o te wā nā tāne, nā rongo,